and welcome to the Weekly Wind-Up, the programme that aims to inform, amuse, interest and sometimes provoke. I'm Kyle Warwick, and joining me on this week's programme are Conservative councillor for the Denby Dale, Jim Dodds.
Hi Kyle.
Scrine from the Milestone Society.
Hello Kyle.
And Arta Heath from Heath and Power Solicitors.
Hi Kyle.
Now, last Sunday saw many people gather at events around the region to commemorate the lives lost in conflicts as part of the Remembrance Sunday. Jim, could you tell us about your Sunday?
I certainly can, Kyle. Remembrance Sunday is a very important day in my calendar, and I actually attended the Denby Dale Remembrance service where there was over 100 people there, which was good to see. And I laid a wreath on behalf of Simon Revell, our Member of Parliament for the Dewsbury constituency. On the Tuesday, on the 11th, we had a remembrance service at Bird's Edge, and we always have it during the week because we like to involve the 3 local schools within that area to take part in the remembrance service so that we never forget the sacrifices that men and women have made over the years for our continued well-being.
What is it about Remembrance Sunday and Armistice Day do you feel that's so important?
I think I served 35 years in the army. I joined when I was 15. I left as a major, and to me it is really important that we never forget the ultimate sacrifice that young men and women have made on our behalf, because they didn't want to die, but they died so that we could continue and our lives could continue. So it's important that we don't forget. And what I did in the Denby Dale ward, I commissioned through Huddersfield University this plaque. I don't know if you can see it, but it was made so that all the schools in the Denby Dale ward would look at World War I and what effect it had on the people that were left behind, the local area, and those that went to war. And on June the 11th this year, they did a presentation in the town hall on what they had found. And I thought it was an excellent way of making the young children understand the cruelties of war and the futility of war and what it means, not to some distant relative, but what it meant to their family. And each school received one of these plaques. So it's important that we never forget.
As part of Remembrance Sunday, we're also commemorating the centenary of the beginning of World War I. Some people argue that World War I was a senseless, even pointless waste of life. How do you feel about that statement, John?
I think World War I laid the foundations for the situation we have today. I think it was a very, very sad occasion for so many people, and we're still living the consequences.
So in that respect, you think that it is important that we remember World War I?
Absolutely, and World War II and every other conflict, to try to avoid it happening again as it is today.
There are now several different kinds of poppy that go on sale each year. There's ones for animal service members, and then there's a peace poppy and things like that. Do you think the significance of the symbol of the poppy is being lost somewhat, Jim?
I do, because the poppy to me is about remembering those that made the ultimate sacrifice, and that's the red poppy. And I think a lot of the other poppies, perhaps they're doing it for commercial gain, I don't know, but we can't forget the ultimate sacrifice these people have made. And to put it in perspective, on day 1 of the Somme, 50,000 Allied soldiers were killed on day 1. It is just unbelievable. And we can't forget that sacrifice. If it's going to be worth them giving up their lives, we've got to make sure it never happens again.
The poppy as a symbol, the red poppy specifically as a symbol, has in recent times been hijacked by far-right groups to promote their cause. How do you feel about a symbol like the poppy being used in such a way, Arta?
Well, I think really a huge symbol like a poppy, it's a real shame to be used for anything else other than what it actually meant and what it is for. As Jim says, those people lost their life for what we are living today, for our lifestyle, for our rights, for who we are. And being remembered through the symbol of the poppy is what has been going on since the remembrance started. And I think being used for any other political reason or personal motivation, it's a real shame.
Do you agree with that, John?
Yes, I believe that the poppy is a really valuable symbol. It's a focus. I believe that it should be maintained, and equally, when people are buying poppies, I put my 50p into the poppy collector's tin, and then I make my donation direct to the British Legion. I know it will go there, and I know that they'll get gift aid on that. So there are other ways of celebrating the poppy rather than just putting it in a tin in the supermarket.
This centenary celebration is seeing the establishment of the display at the Tower of London, which a lot of people have been wanting to get to see, some people have been struggling to get to see. Do you think that's something that should be extended beyond its current expected lifespan, Jim?
I think it should, because we've got to keep the focus of all people on, again, this ultimate sacrifice. The British Legion every year needs £80 million to keep going and keep their good work for the serving soldiers that have got disabilities because of war, because of the families that are in difficulties, and we need to keep it in the public's mind of all the sacrifice being made. I had two grandfathers in the First World War, both enlisted in 1914. One of them survived. My other grandfather, he died on the 6th of August 1918, 6 weeks before armistice. We can't forget that. We've got to remember this, and these symbols are a way of making sure that we keep it in the public's eye.
Recently there's been, over the weekend, there's been certain football players. I mean, James McLean is one that particularly springs to mind. He's a Northern Irish footballer from Derry, and he refused to wear the poppy due to his close geographical connection to Bloody Sunday. He was booed massively. Every time he received the ball, he was booed by opposition fans. Do you think that that's right? That somebody in the spotlight should be held accountable for something like that, or do you think he should be free to express his political views?
It's a double-edged sword. I don't agree with what he did, but I agree that he should be free to express his views. Whether those views, I think those views are right or wrong, that is not the case. Our country, we're lucky that we've got freedom of speech. People can say what they want. We may not always agree with what they say, but it's their right to say it. I've done a number of emergency tours in Northern Ireland during the Troubles in the late 60s and 70s, and I understand the problems that they've got. But we've got to remember that the poppy is about those that gave the ultimate sacrifice.
Do you agree with that, Arta?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely I agree. I think, poppy really has become a symbol of the First World War, Second World War, and every other conflict. And it is understandable that people who are on the other side of what the war is about might feel that actually, it is difficult for them to agree with the war. We all have got our own opinion whether whether the war is right. However, what I think is yes, there is a right of anybody to express themselves, and if they don't believe in something, then we are living in a really great country for that, so we can express our views. So although the poppy is absolutely, it is showing the ultimate sacrifice, and it is a symbol of the ultimate sacrifice, I guess it is for the people to decide whether they wear it or not.
Well, unfortunately, that's all we have time for on this topic. As always, we'd like you to get in contact with your views and opinions. The Weekly Wind-Up can be contacted by email info@kirkleeslocaltv.com, or you can find us on our Twitter page by searching @The Weekly Wind-Up. Please join us after this short break. And welcome back. Joining me this week are Councillor Jim Dodds, Jan Scrine and Arta Heath. Jan, you've joined us to discuss a bid for a grant to help establish a heritage trail through the Colne Valley. Could you fill us in on what the aims of that heritage trail are?
Yes. What our group of volunteers are doing is we're setting up a heritage trail through the wonderful, stunning scenery of the Colne Valley, and you know where it is, Carl. It's Milestone, it's Slowett. And the trail's called Crossing the Pennines. What it's showcasing is the fantastic travel history of the region. It's history that shaped the Colne Valley, it shaped the West Riding. It's the Romans, the pack horse tracks, it's the canals, the turnpike trusts and the railways.
What does the proposal entail then?
What we're actually doing is we're shortlisted for the People's Millions bid on Yorkshire ITV, and we're up against other very worthy causes in the region, but as only one of 6, we've got a good chance of bringing £50,000 to the Colne Valley. We're in a head-to-head contest with a community cafe in Hull, so we're very much hoping West Riding will get behind us.
How does the bidding process work in terms of your bidding for it and other people getting involved?
Well, let me tell you just a little bit about why we're doing it before we ask people to vote for us. We're hoping that the trail will attract visitors to the Colne Valley, green tourism as people call it, and that will bring custom to our lovely friendly cafes, our shops and our galleries. And the actual construction work will bring money to local craftsmen, and into the bid we've built opportunities for young people in the valley to work on the project and learn new skills. And so we're very much hoping that at this point we'll be able to use history to actually bring jobs. But that means we have to ask for money, and it's a telephone vote. So I'm afraid this always sounds like a commercial, but there's no way to put it. So the telephone vote is on Wednesday, the 26th of November. And they're going to be showing a short film about us on ITV Calendar, the news programme at 6 o'clock. And they'll be giving out the phone number to vote. However, the voting lines are open from 9 in the morning till midnight. And so you've got lots of opportunities because you can find the number to call. It's on our website, Crossing the Pennines. It's on the People's Millions website, and it's in the Daily Mirror. The small print is it costs 15 pence per call, but that's from any BT landline or it's from any mobile phone. So very much we're hoping that people will get behind us, particularly in the West Riding, get behind us 26th of November, and they'll vote for Crossing the Pennines.
Obviously Huddersfield has not just Huddersfield, but Kirklees has a rich history. Do you think we do enough as an area, not just to highlight that history, but to take advantage of it as well?
I don't think we can ever do enough. As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm a comer in. But Huddersfield and the Kirklees area have got a rich tapestry of heritage and history, and we've got to do a lot more to make sure that that is not forgotten, because once it's forgotten, we'll never get it back. And it's important for our children and our grandchildren that we let them know what life was like in the past, because the past has made us what we are today.
Arta, do you agree with that sentiment that highlighting the past is important?
Absolutely. I mean, the past really is what shapes the future, and I think if we don't know what our ancestors did, how they built everything that we are enjoying today, we will never really be able to progress and be proud of who we are. So I think really all the past and all these heritage walks and heritage trails that are being built in different parts of Huddersfield and West Yorkshire, I think they are a great way of educating the youth, educating the public, and making sure that what was built in the past is not forgotten, and it will be enriched in the future by new skills and by a different way and a new modern way of looking into the past, really.
Jan, you mentioned the sort of improvement of the trail. Will that then involve local businesses?
Oh, certainly. What we're looking for, the £50,000 will be used to improve part of the trail. It's a pack horse track. Kirklees Council's offered us some money towards buying the stone to repair it properly. So the money will come into the Colne Valley if we win it for local craftsmen to actually repair it, and built into that we will have the local colleges and the local schools, young people learning skills alongside local craftsmen. So it's a local project, but everybody in the West Riding can come and enjoy it.
Absolutely, and I can only echo the sentiment that 26th of November, get on the phone and vote for it. Great project for the Colne Valley and the Kirklees as a whole. Now we're going to move straight on to a Conservative proposal to scrap the Human Rights Act. David Cameron has proposed to scrap the current Human Rights Act and replace it with a Bill of Rights for Britain. However, some within the Conservative Party have suggested that the Human Rights Bill should just be scrapped entirely. Arta, how do you feel about Mr Cameron's proposal?
Well, I think discussing the scrapping of the Human Rights Act, it's really a great shame for the UK government, for any UK government. That is on the basis that the Human Rights Act is actually enshrining the European Convention of Human Rights that Britain was part of building after the war. So UK and Britain wrote the European Convention of Human Rights, and we were part of it even without the Human Rights Act being adopted by the UK Parliament in 1998. So all really the Human Rights Act does is enshrine that convention in the UK law, so people are able to argue their human rights in the UK courts by the UK judges. There is a big myth about Human Rights Act, and there is actually very little education about what Human Rights Act does and who it does actually protect. There are discussions that Human Rights Act is being mainly used by terrorists and by prisoners to using for voting rights. However, that is actually not true. The Human Rights Act protects 15 fundamental freedoms. It protects the right to life, it protects the right to freedom of speech, it protects the right to free trial, it protects rights that they are enshrined and they are so basic fundamental rights that British people have enjoyed from the Magna Carta. Really, although there is a discussion about the Human Rights Act being replaced by a Bill of Rights, there has been so little detail about what that actually will do that it's very difficult to envisage how it's going to be any different, because the Human Rights Act are just the fundamental 15 rights, and really any other bill will have to have the same rights in it. So it's really difficult for me to see how scrapping Human Rights Act will help the UK. One of the greatest thing about the Human Rights Act is that it actually prevents, it helps the victims, and there are exceptions to the human rights breaches in regards to public security, public health. So there is always the public security, public health. It is, the most important thing that will be taken into consideration when you are talking about a human rights argument in courts.
Jim, I'll come to you as a Conservative councillor. Where do you fall on this? Do you think the Human Rights Act is important? And do you think Mr Cameron's been clear enough about what his British bill would contain?
I think the Human Rights Act is vital, and I'm no legal expert, but I don't think we can cancel the Human Rights Act. If we did, it would be horrendous. It's there for a reason, and it's there to protect all our citizens. We don't want to become a dictatorship where at the top tell us what to do. So it's important that we keep the Human Rights Act as it is, and we've got to make sure that if we're going to make any changes to how this country relates to it, they've got to be correct.
I mean, if I can come on here, is just what is really important as well is that, even if there are changes, those changes will have to continue to protect the British people. And we are a country that take the flag on human rights, and we are always talking about, intervening on countries where there are human rights abuses and dictatorships. We're talking about Syria every day. But if we are ourselves scrapping the Human Rights Act, how are we then going to make sure that the other countries will follow protecting their people's human rights? How can we have the face to say to Syrian government, actually, you can't torture people? How can we say to the Russian government, you can't torture homosexuals and you can't ill-treat people? We just can't. I mean, Human Rights Act is vital and it is part of who we are, really.
Do you agree with that, John?
Yes, possibly we need to look at at the applications, as Jim says, at the interpretation, how we apply it, but the fundamental rights have to be there in some form, and it's there already. Why tinker?
From what you were saying, Arta, about its relation to the Geneva Convention, and that meaning that it's extremely unlikely that scrapping it would have any real effect, it kind of sounds like the situation with the £1.7 billion EU surcharge, where Mr Cameron is maybe pandering to EU sceptic UKIP defector voters, but ultimately probably won't be able to follow through on what he's proposing.
I mean, I absolutely agree. I think the problem with the Human Rights Act is that we can't, you can scrap the Human Rights Act, but you are still liable to the European Court of Human Rights while you are signatory to the European Convention of Human Rights. So it's only by coming out of the European Convention of Human Rights that we will literally make sure that we won't have anything to do with the European Court of Human Rights. But I think that would be a great shame for the UK, taking into account that the UK was the leading government that actually built the Human Rights Act. It was Churchill that was, behind that Geneva Convention. And I think it would be a great shame if that legacy did not continue and we scrapped the Human Rights Act.
Well, it's been an extremely historically driven programme today. I'd like to thank my guests for joining me. It's been an extremely interesting, informative discussion. As always, we'd like you to get involved with your opinions on anything that you've heard today. You can do so by email, info@kirkleeslocaltv.com, or on our Twitter page, search @TheWeeklyWindup. Please join us next week for more debate and discussion on Kirklees Local Television's Weekly Windup. Thank you and goodbye.